All righty. So today it is what's Thursday, May 8th. Today we got a new Pope, Leo
We
the
did.
14th, right? And I've seen some excellent jokes on the social media about having our first American Pope, such as new papal rule, no ketchup on hot dogs because he's from Chicago. Wondering if we
Mm-hmm.
have, pictures of Pope with the bean. Probably got the first ever Pope that's gone to Walmart, but my personal favorite was this Pope grew up a Cubs fan. That means he technically hates the Cardinals.
That's good. That's good.
Hey, I found his dad!
I think Dad has made some excellent progress today.
Your dad, he's a fun guy, right?
And I love him so much, and I think he's the greatest dad in the world.
Welcome back to the Working on the Dad Pod. I'm Alex. With me, as always, is Ethan. And this week, we are talking about responsibility, but not our responsibility. You hear about that a lot, but giving kids more responsibility, especially as our oldest are getting a little bit, older, and how you add responsibility, why it's important, some different ways that we've experienced adding responsibility and how kids handle it, some of the benefits, and a little bit of what we've learned along the way on some of the best ways to do it and things we might even try going forward. For that, we'll have story time. After that, we'll work on the dad pod. But this is your reminder before we get going, please like and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. But most of all, check us out on YouTube. You'll get to see our beautiful faces, well, at least Ethan's, and you'll get the episode first because we always post on YouTube the night of. For podcasts, you have to wait till pretty early the next morning. So that 7 hours, I know it kills most of you. So don't wait. Subscribe on YouTube. Ethan, how's it going, man?
It's going all right. You know, here you and I are on our Working on the Dad podcast, and some other guy from Chicago just became the father of an entire religion. So maybe he should be our next guest. I don't know.
I don't know that that's what they call him, but yeah, I think they use the father to signify something else in the religion, but
Don't you call well, not you, you're not Catholic, but don't Christians call the priests and reverends father?
Yeah, I guess, but that's all of them.
Okay, fine, whatever. I'm like trying to go with a pun here, like we're the
You
father of two kids. Yeah, you know what wasn't nailed?
You could already be called. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, you're right. Tired, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, story time in this city. So
you want to go first? You want me to go first?
I will go first. So I could talk about tonight's dinner and how it all blew up, but I don't really want to do that.
Ongoing series. It's no longer story time. It's dinner time with Ethan.
Yeah. So I'm going to talk about yesterday. So, a little further back. So Tuesday night, my daughter woke up in the middle of the night twice. This is the 2.5-year-old, and she pretty much we're at the point where if she wakes up in the middle of the night crying, unless she accidentally knocked her pacifier out of her crib and she can't get it, she's probably sick. And she woke up and she said she was crying and she said ear hurt. So I gave her a Tylenol to help her sleep and laid on her floor for a little bit, fell back to sleep pretty quickly. And then about 30 minutes later, same thing happened again. So I thought to myself, okay, she is sick. So we just didn't know with what. So I woke her up, although we had a pretty good hint it was an ear infection. So woke her up. She definitely had one ear that looked super full and gross. So I called the doctor's office and said, hey, she woke up in the middle of the night saying her ear hurt. There was also a case of strep in her class, so I'd like to bring her in. So got a doctor appointment for the morning, took my older kid to school. because of all the changes at work and the less free leniency with telework, I sent an email to the entire leadership team and all my direct reports, and I said, "Hey, I'm out this morning, possibly longer. Got to take the kid to the doctor." And we got to the doctor. They confirmed an ear infection, so right then and there, I knew she could not go to school until she had been on antibiotics. They did a strep test. Strep was negative, but I emailed everybody back and said, "Hey, taking the whole day." So at that point, probably for the first time in a long time, I didn't touch my phone all day at work. And my daughter and I honestly just had an amazing daddy daughter day, because even though she was sick, she was still her normal happy self. We played, we giggled. When we went to the grocery store to pick up her prescription, she said she wanted to ride on my shoulders the whole time. She kept saying, "Daddy, Daddy, I'm so tall," and waving to everybody who she saw in the store. And honestly, just being totally disconnected from work, just hanging out with my daughter when she napped. I caught up on Righteous Gemstones and folded laundry. It was honestly just a really good daddy daughter day where, she was fine with regard to just like being totally chill despite having an ear infection. I was disconnected from work. I even, after the girls went to bed, went for a jog because I was feeling like I just needed to do something, which was great. My wife was obviously very understanding that I needed to get out of the house to have some time for myself, given that she was at work all day. But frankly, it was a great day. And even though it was because my daughter was sick, it was just kind of really nice to have that daddy-daughter time for a good 8 hours that we don't normally get. So that was nice.
Nice. That sounds lovely. That sounds
It
lovely.
was.
My son woke up last week with the ear infection in the middle of the night, and so yeah, that can definitely not be fun. We actually did like a telehealth visit at like midnight. My wife did. I'll be honest, my wife did it, and the doctor was just like, give him some acetaminophen, like, and if it doesn't get better in a day or two, then consider antibiotics. And that was the first time a doctor, like, we've done that before with my daughter, because as I've mentioned on this podcast before, when we give her antibiotics for an ear infection or something, she tends to follow that up with a UTI pretty regularly. And so we kind of just let it run its course. And we did that with our son based on the doctor's advice this time. And that also happened to work. So, got lucky. He was fine by the morning. But yeah, it's definitely not fun when that happens, but at least, you can make some lemonade out of the lemons. My story time is something that we've been doing for the past week or so, where we have for bedtime. I've mentioned this before on several of our episodes, but we have a pretty regimented bedtime routine where 7:35 timer goes off. Elmo sings his brush your teeth song. We all jam a little bit and then we get into it. There's a strict set of things. And we haven't deviated from that, but what we've done is we've added an element to it that the kids seem to respond to pretty well. And it might be a short-term fix, but we've turned it into a bit of a race, but not a race between our kids. It is a family effort where one kid is assigned mom and one kid is assigned dad, and they have their stations. We start them in the living room. They have their pajamas there in the living room. They move to station 2 at the dining room that has their toothbrushes already ready with toothpaste. My daughter has her hairbrush. And then we move into the bathroom for spitting the toothpaste and going potty. And we've got it organized so that no two kids are in the same place at the exact same time, so that it can all go. We start a timer on my wife's phone, and we time from the word go to when they pick their books, when they're completely done with their routine. And I got to say, that motivation, sometimes it's turned into a thing where 7:45 hits and maybe my daughter loses a book because she's just not getting her act together. She doesn't want to do it. Our record so far is 2 minutes and 59 seconds getting through the entire getting ready
Wow.
routine. Tonight, we did it in 3 minutes and 16 seconds. So for those of you who are as bad at math and didn't follow all my words there, instead of taking 10, 12, 15 minutes, which is still an incredibly short time based on all the anecdotes I hear from around the world, we have optimized, synergized, focused our efforts to get it always under 5. It's never been, I think our worst is like 4.5 minutes. The biggest battle we had to overcome was night 1. The kids, my wife let them pick a parent. They both picked mom, and the loser freaked out. It was my son. There was a coin flip involved, and he doesn't really understand what that means. And so, yeah, that was probably our worst time. But ever since then, we've decided we're just going to alternate who gets what parent. So, it's like, all right, you had this person last night, fair is fair. But yeah, that's been a nice sort of way for all of us. We're all engaged, we're all involved. Sometimes it used to be one parent in the bathroom and one parent in the bedroom, and the bedroom parent honestly usually just kind of sitting there on their phone waiting for the kids to brush their teeth and go potty and do the things they need to do. And now it's like a whole team effort. We're all invested in it, and so far it's been really good. And I'm really excited for next week for it to kind of get thrown out the window, because my wife will be traveling Tuesday morning through coming back Friday morning. So yeah, I don't know that I can do it single-handedly, but we can at least try and see what we do.
Can you try kids versus dad?
I guess, but we don't like to make it a verse thing, right? Because it's not mom's team versus dad's team. Anyway, it's a whole collaborative effort, right? Like, we're encouraging everybody because the goal is to beat the time. It's the team time. And I think that's what makes it work better, because then somebody's feelings would get hurt if they always lost or they lost once. I mean, they're competitive.
Yeah.
So I think we can sort of try our best, and I might consider having my daughter go it alone, because she can do all of her things. Her PJs get on a little bit faster. Her hair gets brushed a little bit faster and better. Or we may just sort of, play it by ear. But I'll probably talk to the kids, see what they want to do, and get their opinion before 7:35, so that we can at least strategize around it.
Cool. Nice.
Yeah.
That sounds fun. Yeah.
So responsibility. So really what brought this question on, or topic, for me is my daughter is getting to the age where she has the capability to be more helpful around the house, right? And I think it's one of those things that you don't always notice, because when they're young, I think kids want to help, they want to be around mom and dad, but then sort of getting to the level of like chores, right? And doing the various things that help out around the house so that the nighttime doesn't feel so chaotic. Like we've talked about in our Kids and Stuff episode, especially, but in many other episodes, about just cleaning up, picking up your stuff. Like that's sort of basic. But then you can move on to things like feeding pets if you have them, or washing dishes, or sweeping, or vacuuming, or whatever. And so it's just sort of to me, it's an interesting topic to think about when we think about like, what's the next phase? And like, do we give chores, and do those chores come with payment, right? Like, because I know that's a pretty common structure that people will put a money value on, like, well, if you take out the trash, I'll give you $1, or whatever the going market rate is for young child labor these days. Things like that. And what we want the kids to do, and also that balancing act between the two kids of like, there are things that I will ask of my daughter that my son will want to do, but I am not comfortable with him doing at the same level that my daughter does. Do you experience any of these thoughts, or am I just in my own head on that one?
No, you're not in your own head. We obviously were about a year behind you with the eldest, and about 6 months behind you with the youngest. So we haven't gotten to the point where our oldest daughter needs like a specific set of chores, but we're kind of like you with the cleaning up after yourself. What we do make her do sometimes is if she's like first to be done with dinner, or whatever she calls that meal at the end of the day, we ask her to, while we're all still sitting there, we ask her sometimes to take all of our plates one at a time and silverware to the sink. And sometimes she's for it, sometimes she goes, oh, what do I have to? And I said, well, we cooked, we set the table because you didn't want to help us with that, so the least you could do is just this part of cleaning. My younger daughter gets really excited when she gets the opportunity to help because it kind of makes her feel really strong, whether that is taking the giant ketchup bottle from the fridge to the table or any other kind of condiment, and sometimes just bringing plates or bowls. We are pretty much 100% plastic plateware in our house she demanded that she ate off the same stuff we did. She wouldn't take her kids' plates. So from then on, we said, well, okay, so until she's old enough to have a real plate, we are all going the Target 50-cent single color plastic microwavable plates and bowls. That's pretty much what we do every time.
Yeah. We may have the exact same set. I don't know. We have blue ones and pink ones. We use them a lot because we have like our patio area, and when we host events and stuff, out on the patio, people carrying stuff one place to another, we tend to pull those because we have adult size ones and we have smaller salad size ones, but they're the kid size ones. And so we have a stack of plates, and they're light blue and dark blue. And my daughter always gets the light blue. My son always gets the dark blue. And like, they are very much attached to their color. We eat off of white porcelain plates, but we don't have the, like, they must do the same thing as us, but it does. Yeah. We're there mostly just because we don't trust them, and they're super easy, and they're not like ordained with characters or kitty designs in a way that you couldn't hand it to an adult and the adult would be like, why am I eating the Fisher Price?
Right. Yeah, no, I just remember one time my parents were over and they said, Ethan, can we ask you something? And I thought one of them was, dying or something. And
Sure.
they say, why do you only eat off plastic plates? And this is 3 days into their visit, right? So, and I just looked at them and said, have you not noticed that she demands to eat off the same stuff we are? Do you think would you give her the nice plate, or would you just suck it up and use the plastic plate if you knew it had to be the same? And they go, we thought there was some big reason. That's the big reason,
right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the big reason. She wants to be the same, so we've dumbed it down to her level, right?
Yeah.
So
keep it easy.
But
my daughter does that, and she got to a point, and I don't want to act like it was like a life change. She had a couple of days where she really wanted to wash the dishes, and I was like, go crazy. She was like, it's a hobby of mine. I was like, you've never done it before. Like, yeah, it's a hobby of mine to fix up classic automobiles. Like, that's not something I've done. Like, what are you talking about? Okay, right. Go ahead. Like, fine. And then by like night 3, there's just like a pile of dishes, and I'm just like, hey, are you doing your hobby tonight? And she was like, no, I'm kind of over it. I'm like, well, yeah, it's kind of crappy hobby. I hate it. It's something I do a lot, but yeah.
My girls don't like washing the dishes, but they do like helping empty the dishwasher. They get really excited to pick it up.
That has been
wipe it down.
Yeah. Well, I think that's kind of like a natural evolution, because when they're young toddlers or even babies. Like they're fascinated with dishwashers, both my kids. And I think it's
Mhm.
pretty common for kids. And they're like pulling stuff out. And I'm like, well, if you're going to be pulling out the forks, at least hand them to me. Let's get an assembly line going. Like I can stand between the
Mhm.
dishwasher and the fork drawer. And it's like, okay, what's the, and we can turn it into a game.
Yeah.
What's this one? Spoon. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's a
Right.
spoon, right? So we would definitely do that. And we do try to we actually have some shelves in our dining room that hold all of our like plates and stuff. They're just open shelves. And my daughter can actually reach the plates there, standing
Mm.
flat footed on the ground. And so she's able to grab the plates and like set the table and all that stuff. So she likes helping. But one thing she started doing a while ago, but it happened again tonight, was she likes to help cook, right? In fits and spurts. It's when she's feeling it, right? Like today she was on my wife's laptop playing like there's like a school portal for like educational games, and she was playing some
Mhm.
educational games or whatever on my wife's laptop when I was starting dinner. I was like, "Hey, do you want to help me with dinner?" She's like, "No, that's okay." My wife walks in. My son wasn't home yet, and she goes, "Hey, when your brother gets home, you're gonna have to close that and stop playing." And then it was like, "Oh, yep, there's your grandma. He's home." And she goes, "Yeah, I think I'll help with dinner." Right? So she likes
Mm.
cooking that much when there's not something
Okay.
more interesting. But what and we started her off small, like, okay, you get to mix the things. You want to scramble the eggs, right? But we've moved, like, I allow her to work on the stovetop and do those kinds of things. And we got her a set of knives. They're like plastic knives, but they're very serrated, but they can't like cut your skin. They're kind of crappy for cutting other things. But she was able to actually like chop up garlic tonight, and she can cut some other things. I am probably going to try and give her some lessons on using a real knife, because it is like super frustrating where she's like, I chopped the garlic, and like the garlic's all like the size of my fingertip, and I'm like, it needs to be a lot smaller than that. Like, I have some grated ginger
Right.
here, and I'm like, get as close to that as you can, and wasn't. But then
Mhm.
she's happy to help. And the outcome of that, like, and is we're making this dinner. We're making some rice in the instant pot. She's loving to put the rice or the butter in the rice. I'm having her taste test it, add salt, test it again so it gets the right saltiness, because she cares just how salty her rice is. She's very particular about it. I'm like, great, you own this, right? Get her to have some sensory experiences. We put the rice in the instant pot, and then we rinse it really well. And so she's getting her hands in there and rinsing it and doing all the things, all that stuff, and she really enjoys that. And the outcome was that we get to the table. She goes and tells everybody dinner's ready. She's like, I am so excited for this dinner. Oh my gosh, this is going to be the best dinner ever because I made it. Like, explicitly said that. And I'm like, listen, if
Nice.
you can help me cook, and I found a pretty strong correlation, the times she helps me cook and the times we get fewer complaints during dinner. Like, she cleared her plate. She cleared her plate. And it was like beef and broccoli, and it was fairly palatable, but she ate every piece of broccoli, every piece of beef, every piece of rice, and she served herself her own portions, right? It wasn't, like, and they were pretty
Yeah.
hefty portions. And so I was just very much like, okay, I feel good about this outcome. Yes, did dinner take 15 minutes longer than if I was doing it? Sure. But she's excited. She ate it, and she was out of my wife's hair. And my wife wasn't sitting there trying to entertain two kids going, "Hey, what's CETA on dinner?" Which is like this common refrain in my house. So yeah, that was a nice way to do it. But I think, she's 6, right? She can do a little knife work. She can do some mixing things. But I think at the beginning, it was just literally like, okay, I'm gonna pour the spice into the teaspoon and you dump it, right? And then we'll stir it up a
Mhm.
little bit, right? And those kind of things. But getting them feeling involved, I think, is a huge benefit to a lot of these kinds of responsibilities, that they feel invested in the process and they're more excited about it, versus like, this is a mandate of food you have to eat. She didn't know what we were making before she jumped in the kitchen, and she was asking questions along the way. And then we got to a dinner that as we talked about in our food episode, was not a dinner that she had picked out, that she had put on the menu, but she was hyped about it.
That's cool. Yeah, our kids like helping in the kitchen as well. It's still pretty limited though. Sometimes it's grabbing ingredients. Sometimes it's, pouring in the box of pasta, with us assisting, I don't think, I think my wife was telling me that the other day for Pancake Wednesday, she finally trusted one of the girls to crack an egg. And instead of cracking the egg, it was a smash of the egg. So I yelled at her about wasting $10,000. Just kidding. Eggs are not that pricey, but you get the gist of the joke. But it's yeah. So I mean, definitely food, helping cook has been a thing in the house. It hasn't fully translated though to eating more of it, but
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
hopefully we get there.
I think it can, depending on what it is, but I think where my daughter wants to go, my daughter likes doing nice things for people, and she very much wants to get to a point where we trust her and allow her to like make us breakfast in bed, like scramble us eggs, right? And I'm like, I'm okay with it generally, but the problem is you're absent-minded, right? And that's sort of those levels of responsibility is like, I'm okay with you cooking in the kitchen if I'm supervising, but if you're making the eggs, we pretty much exclusively use a cast iron pan for most of our cooking. Like that's our go-to device. We have some other things, but it's mostly cast iron pan, and it's heavy, right? Like it's heavy, especially when it's filled with food, but she can't pick it up with one hand and scrape with another hand like myself or my wife can. Like it just weighs too much. Like she can't maybe pick it up with two hands. And so I'm like, that's daunting. Not to mention, like, I'm not sure I trust you to remember to turn the stove off. Or, like she loves to, when she wants to snack, she's very proud of herself. She knows how to make herself a PB&J. It's not a big culinary achievement, but she loves it. And I'm trying to get her to the point of like, okay, you have to put the peanut butter and jelly away. I know you can reach it because you got it all out, but like there's jelly smeared on the counter, an open jelly jar with like fruit flies just like licking their chops. And I'm like, okay, like let's maybe reconsider. Yeah.
Quick peanut butter aside, my 2.5-year-old has now realized that she very much loves just eating a spoonful of peanut butter. And if we let her, she would eat an entire jar in one sitting, is how much she loves it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that is that's like my kids really like peanut butter and honey as well as a combo. I don't think we've ever given them the option to just eat peanut butter on a spoon. Like we haven't like specifically forbade it, but they've never asked. And I'm like, is what it is. But they really like peanut butter and jelly, specifically on a tortilla. Like they like a peanut butter and jelly roll up. And, it's pretty handy because then you can roll the end for them and things don't squirt out.
Yeah, not very messy. That's a good one. I'll throw that out to my daughter if she wants just peanut butter. So, yeah,
it's not too bad. But I've mentioned some of the other things, and I think cleaning is another one where like finding ways that they can help. Right, like my daughter especially got really into like cleaning when she was probably 2 or 3, and like really into cleaning. I don't mean like she became a clean freak, just like wanting to do what we were doing, sweeping the floors and stuff.
Right.
And so we got her like a wooden kid size, like broom, mop, duster, and then like dustpan and hand broom set. And what it does allow is it allows them to clean up their messes a little bit better because they have the equipment to do it. But it also, like, if they want to help sweep, they can help sweep. If they want to, help dust, we grab the duster and it's like, hey, you can help dust. Now, we're not doing it as much because we have started getting Molly maids to come in, and they've been doing a fantastic job. So we're not doing as much of the like sanitizing the house kind of efforts or dusting or those kinds of things, just because they come every 2 weeks and the dust doesn't build up fast enough. I'll be honest, we weren't
Mhm.
dusting our house every 2 weeks anyway, so it's better than it was, but that helps. And then we have, for like a vacuum, we have one of those like cordless vacuums that's like an upright vacuum, but it's battery powered, and it's got like a telescoping
Mhm.
like tube, and so you can make it really short so that the kids, it can be at their height for the same vacuum, and they love doing that, which is with with our dog having long hair and shedding constantly. There's always something to vacuum. There's always some hair
Sure.
that needs to go away, for sure.
Yeah, my daughter, older one, likes vacuuming when we let her. We should let her more. I think she just hasn't asked in a while. And my 2.5-year-old really always wants to volunteer to sweep the leaves out of the garage. Problem
Yeah.
is she wants to do it either right when she notices the leaves, it's either we are about to leave or we're trying to get inside. So it's never a just random moment where she says, "Can I go outside and sweep?" Because I would definitely let her. It's always, it's an out of sight, out of mind chore that she would like to do. So
Yeah. Yeah, I hear that.
yeah.
But I think, just moving the conversation forward a little bit, I think some strategies, if you're trying to introduce responsibilities to your kids, that have helped me, right? I think one is explaining it clearly, right? If you're in the middle of doing something and you're on a deadline, understand that maybe it's not the best time. But if you have the time, right? Like, I took the time at dinner to be like, okay, this is how we do XYZ. This is how we measure this. This is how we do this. I take the time when we're cooking because I'm like, I want you to learn this skill so that, yeah, one day you can do it. But explaining it as you go clearly so they understand it with a lot of patience, I think is really important. That, like, the focus, kind of like how I've talked about my kids with sports and stuff, is more about, like, when I take my daughter to golf lessons, it's never the question of like, how'd you hit them? It's like, did you have fun? Right. And wanting it to
Right.
be an enjoyable experience, because I think chores can sometimes be soul sucking, right? Feeling like
Sure.
it's something you have to do. But I also think it's just important that you teach them what to do. You're okay with them failing at it. You don't immediately like
Mhm.
jump in every time to correct them. Right.
Right.
And you just praise them for trying and putting forth the effort, because the skill will come if the effort remains high. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think so. I I try to, on occasion ask them if they want to do something with me, or sometimes I try to make a game out of a responsibility, or I will explain, sometimes not well, I guess, because it doesn't always get done. But just why things need to get done and how everybody has to play a part, and as in a family everybody has a job, but it doesn't always go well. I could probably brush up on my strategery with regard to the communal responsibilities in the home. So
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of which, where do you stand on paying kids for chores?
so I had an allowance when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I don't know how much I did in elementary school, to be honest. I remember a lot more in junior high and high school. But, you know, I think I'm for it in that, if, as long as there's a budgetary um lesson in along with it. Just giving a kid money, and when they don't even know what money really is, like you've heard of $1, you've heard of $1 million, but you're not actually, my parents, I can't, either I'm a real loser or they made me, but I kept a balance sheet of my earnings of through allowance and what I spent, at like the snack shop and all that stuff. And I tracked it. And, there is a famous breakfast negotiation of when I told my dad I needed an allowance raise because, the amount of money I was given wasn't enough, because I would still inevitably ask them for more money to pay for the things that my allowance was supposed to pay for. So I basically showed them proof that I needed to earn more to and in exchange, I would stop asking them for more money. And I think it worked out. I think it was a really well thought out presentation without a PowerPoint at the time. Just some good talkers, and it went pretty well. And it just I think it's important, if you're going to tie the chores, if you're going to make it out to be a job, there needs to be the lesson on fiscal responsibility and financial literacy. I think that's kind of my long-winded take.
Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with you, but I do. Right.
Okay.
I think my take is that both are important and they should stay separate. Right. Like, I think that my plan is to hold off on paying my kids for basic household chores as long as possible, with the ideal goal of never doing it. And I'm also okay giving them an allowance for no other reason than like they need money and should be able to understand a budget, right? My dad did it that way. Like, obviously my parents were divorced and I did not live with him, but one day a week on average, right? I was there every other weekend. And so like, it was not my responsibility to like clean his house or anything like that.
Right.
But he just gave me like a weekly allowance, and I think it was $5 up until I was in high school, and then bumped up more. But it did teach me budgeting, and I think I was probably like 7 or 8 when it started. And I think it was one of those where like I wanted to buy something. I remember one of the first things I really saved up for was I wanted a Chipper Jones jersey. We would go down once or twice a year to visit his parents in Atlanta, and it would be like, and we'd go see a Braves game, and Braves were my favorite team. Chipper was my favorite player, and I wanted to save up for it. And I knew that jersey was $100, and I knew through some pretty simple math that meant 20 weeks.
20 weeks
of saving my allowance and not spending it on a toy because we went to the mall or whatever. And so I think you can build those fiscal lessons, but I was kind of glad of like, I didn't have to tie that motivation of saving, which I think is a really important thing, with like how much I wash the dishes. And I also think that like, I want to frame this that like, if you're paying your kids for chores, I'm not trying to demonize anybody, but I also think that like you get to where we are now and you pretty quickly realize once you get out on your own that nobody's paying you to wash the dishes anymore. Right. And you ate off the dishes, you contributed to the trash, you helped make the mess on the floor. Like, you're part of it. It's just helping keep, it's like all things like, yes, this house would be cleaner. There would be fewer dishes. There would be fewer messes. There would be less dirt, there'd be less dust. There'd be less everything if you weren't living here. Right. And so therefore you should bear some of the responsibility for keeping it clean. At the same time, you didn't ask to exist. We made you exist. Like, I understand that balance too, but I also think that like tying the chores and the responsibility just has more potential for being problematic, and not like teaching them that like this is just what you do so that When stuff's put away, you know where to find it. When stuff's clean, you don't feel embarrassed about bringing people over. You know, my daughter started having play dates after school with one of our neighbors. And so it's just like, hey, is this how you want them to see your room? Is this how you want them to see your stuff? And sort of using those kinds of things as more motivational tactics so far.
So I want to clarify two things. One, just because of the way you said it, for all our millions of listeners, Alex and his dad went to Atlanta once or twice a year to visit his grandparents, not Chipper Jones's parents. The phrasing made it sound like Alex and Chipper Jones's parents are really tight. So I just wanted to verify that that was not the case. Two.
Yeah. I don't think they live in Atlanta. I think they're from Florida, actually.
Could be. That's true. I really don't know.
I know they are. But
I'm not keeping up with the Joneses. Okay. And my position is I have no problem connecting to them. I haven't decided connecting allowance to chores.
No, I just haven't asked decided. Your take on something you haven't really strongly considered yet.
Right.
And I'll be honest. Like, it's a floating thought in my mind of like, man, I wish I didn't have to do all this. And I see another able body over there. And like, how do I get them? Right. This is the genesis of the topic. The topic is not like me cooking dinner with my daughter and going, man, I could really share some wisdom with the world. The genesis of this topic is me going, that's an able-bodied person over there that used to crap their pants. How do I get them to like do some of this stuff that I don't want to do so much of?
So here's my question though, for, when you don't tie them together and the allowance is just, I'm going to give you $5 a week for no reason other than the fact that I said I'd give you $5 a week.
Yeah.
Do you view that as universal basic income, or is it revocable? And how does one revoke it if it's not tied to a chore or a behavior or an expectation? That is my question.
It was never revoked for me, and my plan wouldn't be to revoke it. Right.
Okay.
If we go that route, like I'm not even suggesting that that's necessarily what we'll do. I liked that. Right. And I think part of the strategy there again was that my dad and I weren't always together. Right. And so I think part of the strategy of that is like, I couldn't just, we didn't have cell phones until high school. I didn't. And texting, like I couldn't just text my dad, like, hey, Venmo me $10. I need to, I want to buy something or, make a case like that. And so I think that could be part of it. But yeah, I kind of view it as more of a universal basic income thing. Like, you have things you want to do. I don't want you to feel like you have to ask me for money every single time that you need something. I also want you to learn to prioritize the money and not make it so much money that like you're like, because like it was $5 a week, and when I was like in high school, even at like I think it went up to like $25 a week, it's still not like enough to like do all the things you want to do. And so eventually the goal there is to not give them so much money that they never want for anything. But the goal is to, like you can prioritize your stuff, right? And then if you really want to like go out to lunch with your friends or, do XYZ, you can get a job. You can find ways to make money. And like when I was in middle school and I was making $5 a week, I was also mowing lawns around my neighborhood, and I could clear like $100 a week on that, like, or maybe $50 a week, $100 every 2 weeks kind of thing. But that was a lot more money. Because once I realized the value of money and how far it could go, I found myself motivated to figure out how I could get more of it, because I didn't feel like, I think the only reason my allowance went up was not because I negotiated, it's because I was like burning out trying to like make more money and like keep up with school and all those kinds of things. And my dad gave me a raise just so like I wouldn't feel like I had to like work all the retail hours and do all the other things that I was trying to do. And so I kind of, like I said, I view it as UBI, not as like some king making stuff. So that,
Gotcha.
they can buy the things that they want, but not everything they want. And so it's kind of towing that line. And I think my dad kind of pulled
Sure.
$5 out of thin air because it was easy to just hand me a $5 bill. But at the same time, like the math and the economics of like how far it actually went worked out
Mhm.
really well. And I don't know if that was, maybe it was. My dad's left comments on our YouTube videos before. Maybe he'll drop a comment of like he had a whole spreadsheet calculating what the right one would be. But yeah, it just felt like I could
Yeah.
give him $1. I could give him a bill. One's not enough. 10's too much. Let's go with the 5, right?
Sure. Yeah, my dad was he there's a bank, US bank. I'm sure all of our millions of listeners have heard of it. But when we were kids, when we were around 10, they introduced essentially a allowance debit card. So that's what I had. I had a debit card that basically gave me $40 a month, so $10 a
Yeah,
week. And
sure.
the reason I had to have this sit down with my dad was that on Friday nights, my friends and I, we would go to the Sherman Oaks Galleria and we would see a movie and have dinner. And I believe that totaled $24. So basically, if I wanted to go with my friends every week, like the rest of them, with the rest of them, I actually couldn't. I could only go,
Yeah,
one a little more than once a month, and
yeah,
or I would have to ask for money. So it really just came down to the economics of it is just like do you want me to be a loser and not have any friends, or or like ask you for more money, or can we just come up with a new number that works and solves all problems? And
yeah.
that's how we ended up. So
Yeah, and I think
yeah.
the the area where I would have an opportunity to like have my kids earn more money like inside our own
Hmm.
house would be
Sure.
something like, we pay somebody to mow our lawn.
Hmm.
Um and if my kids were old enough, and they're pretty far away, my
Sure.
daughter's best case halfway there. But
Right.
um like I'm already paying somebody to do that. If the kids want to reliably do that, I will pay them some or all of what I pay a professional to do it, depending on the quality of job I think they could do. Similarly, I already mentioned that we have cleaning service come.
Hmm.
Like I could see paying my kids to do like a thorough cleaning of the house, but
Hmm.
that's a tougher one where I'm just like, okay, I have really high standards for that
Sure.
of like what I want, because we tried out a couple other cleaners and my wife was like, okay, this isn't much better than what we could do. Certainly not triple figures worth it in like
Hmm.
time and effort savings. So yeah, I think that's sort of the caveat, but I think I think in this modern age, like the debit card is probably the way I would end up going. Some sort of
Hmm.
thing that they, because I mean, I was at I've been to like sporting events now that instead of ATMs, they have like debit
Hmm.
card machines where you turn your cash in because the whole place is cashless. And you're just like I'm not going to
Right.
give my kids cash and make them go to an ATM and deposit it and all that stuff. I'm probably going to make it all digital. Like they can just have it, if they have phones, I might just do like Apple Cash or something like that, because so many places are
Hmm.
contactless or whatever it needs to be by the time they
Yeah.
get there.
Yeah. Speaking of depositing money into the ATM, that is the only downside for you and me as Ally Banking customers.
Yeah. I
You
never have that
like
much
there have been
cash
times in
that I
my
need to do.
no, 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 but there were times in my life where I'd ask I'd ask a friend, I'd be like, hey, here's $50. Can you just Venmo me 50? I don't want this much cash in my bank. I can't put it in my bank. So I've done that before, but we have a once a month cleaning lady where um she's been with us almost 2 years now. Like literally it's my favorite day of the month, and she prefers cash. So I just set that. So when I in my side job as a notary, some people pay in cash, and when I get enough cash, I set it aside for her. And what's not been nice is I haven't actually had to go to the ATM in about a year to pay her. So that's been really nice. So
Nice. Yeah, that's pretty good.
yeah,
All right.
yeah,
Should we
yeah,
move on to working on the dad bod?
yeah. So I'll go first tonight. You went first last time, but I know I've been going first a while. But I've been excited because things have been going quite well for me lately.
Yes,
So
you are.
yeah. So last week I was 188.2, and then on and that was Thursday. Then on Saturday, we got last minute invited to my mother-in-law's house for dinner, and I ate too much food to the point where I thought to myself, "Ooh, I've been doing really well, and I think I ate too much, and I don't feel great." But she ordered food in, so I ate too much, including dessert. And then
Yeah.
on on Sunday, we did Zoom with my mother, and when we do that, we usually order in. Everybody orders in over the Zoom, and we talk. And this new place opened up that my wife and I had been wanting to try for months, and they kept delaying the opening. And it's this new, not just fried chicken, but just like a chicken. It's called Roaming Rooster. And they had 3 flavored sandwiches. So my wife and I thought, let's get all 3 sandwiches. We'll cut them in half and we'll try them.
Sure.
One was too sweet for my wife. The other one was too spicy. So I probably ended up having two sandwiches myself. And so I thought, another fat day. That's not great. I then remembered that this next day on Monday, my father-in-law was going to be in town, so we were going to go out to dinner. So I had an idea. I was at work, and I said, "Hey, if I up my 20 minutes of elliptical that I start my daily workout on to 30 minutes, and I do that every day, I actually will end up with 2 additional days of working out every week, or 2 additional days of elliptical each week. If you add 10 minutes, 5 days, so it's actually 2.5." So I decided to counter the fact that I had 3 not so great days in a row. All that to say is, when, like I said, 1 week ago, I was 188.2. I'm 187.6 today. So despite having 3 bad days in a row, I still lost over half a pound. And, I'm 17.6 pounds away from my goal weight, but I'm still, aside from 3 lapsed days of judgment, since the start of season 3, I'm down 13.6 pounds. Things are going the right direction. I know I can do better than the weekend I just had, but I'm sticking to 5 days a week exercising at a minimum, and trying to have the same thing every day during the workday. So things are going well. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you alluded to is not dissimilar to other things we've talked about, like saving calories when you're gonna be at in a predicament, right? Like not eating
Mhm.
as much in other spots. But I think where your head's at is probably the right place, because it's like those are levers you can pull, but they're not.
Mhm.
It's not like some sustainable it's like, I'm just going to consistently always work out more, like that's just going to be what I do. And it's like, that's not always the thing.
Right.
Like, you cannot count on having the energy, the stamina, or your body holding up to that all the time, having the time
Mhm.
and all those kinds of things. But at the same time, like, yeah, like I have definitely done that, and added like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna wake up a little bit earlier. I'm gonna take the dog for a little bit more of a walk or whatever. Like I'm gonna be
Mhm.
active and those kinds of things. Just to sort of like get my body moving and keep my body moving. And I think those can be super helpful to sort of feel like you're at worst negating some of the calories you did. But yeah, for me, I didn't have what I thought was like a weird week. My sleep was off. I did not sleep super well. But I stayed completely static. I was 176.2 last week and I was 176.2 this morning. There were some
There
ups
you
and
go.
downs in there. Like I was down to like 175.8 at one point in the week, but yeah, it's not even like I have something. I think like all things, as I just mentioned, like there can be variation day to day that just fluctuates your weight, like between the content of your food, right? Like carbs are going to hold more water, and that doesn't mean you have more body fat. Salt is going to
Mhm.
help you hold more water, and that doesn't mean you have more body fat, right? It's like watching those trend lines and not trying to overreact to like, oh my God, what are all, was it those Cheez-Its? Was it that one little bowl of 200 calories of Cheez-Its that did me in? No, of course it wasn't that, right? It wasn't like any one
Right.
thing, but just I try to take at this stage of where I'm at, like not gaining is a good week and losing, it's good. Next week, I think is going to be the final week of my cut for now. And so wherever I'm at next week, I'm probably going to stay there for maybe a couple weeks. Not as long of a maintenance period this time, but just kind of give myself a break. But we'll see, because I'm also like, I think when I was doing it in January, because I was doing it in sort of that old system where I didn't have like a daily calorie allotment, like I had that like fluctuating, like I want to be 500 calories below whatever I did. I feel much more sustainable now. So
Mhm.
we'll see. We'll see where we go. Every
Yeah.
week's a new week.
Yeah, for sure. And I think what's been really cool about this week, at least for me, just adding the extra 10 minutes on the elliptical each day, is I actually didn't uh I didn't lose any pace. So I'm pretty much
Yeah.
on the elliptical I use, and I try to use the same brand every time just because I like the movement, and I try to keep the same resistance. I'm pretty much at 8-minute miles on that. So in a 30-minute period, I'm usually right at 3.75 miles. So
Yeah.
that's been pretty good, aggressive, really gets the blood flowing when I'm doing my weightlifting portion. And it's just been working out nicely. And again, I can very much point to 3 heavy calorie days in a row where if I just didn't do that, it might have gone better. So yeah,
Yeah.
but
And
still a positive week.
the, yeah, but I think the important thing, and this is something I've said before, but like exercising helps weight loss. I don't want to like misconstrue the point, but at the same time, like exercise to improve how your body functions and diet to lose the weight. And you're framing everything in like, I'm going faster, I'm going longer, like my times are getting better. And like those are all performance metrics, right? And so I think that's like a really good headspace to be in, where you're just like, hey, I'm doing great, I'm performing better, and I'm going longer. That's what she said. And it looks like on that cue, Ethan has frozen for us. So I'm going to take this opportunity to thank you guys for joining us, because I think we were pretty much wrapped up. Appreciate you. Remember, like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Remember, subscribe on YouTube. That's where we'll be first and best. And we'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for working on the Dad Pod with us. Any resources that we mentioned during the show will be in the show notes. If you have questions, thoughts, or just want to talk with us, the best place is in the comments on YouTube. We're on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Threads at Working on the Dad Pod, and on Twitter at Working on Dad Pod. Following and subscribing is always appreciated. Please rate and review us. That helps get the show to new people. And if you know a dad who would enjoy our show, sharing it with them is a huge help to them and us. Have a great week.